And we're live for the latest edition of Nick Valencia Live. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining us, for coming in here. We're really excited about the lineup of guests that we have today and all the reporting that we have been putting out this last week. So we want to get right into it. And I'm sure you guys have seen what happened at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention over the weekend, where insiders tell us just when they think that it can't get any worse, it does. And on Friday, my phone started getting messages from people inside the CDC saying reduction in force notices were going out, the RIF notices were going out. And, that's the fancy way of the CDC for them saying that they're getting laid off. And, what we had heard was about 1,200 people, just over 1,200 people received those RIF notifications. But by dawn on Saturday, there was an abrupt about face. And roughly half of those people that got the notices to begin with were told, hey, just kidding, we made a mistake. You guys are okay. We want you to come back into the office. But it's this sort of psychological torture, this trauma that they're going through. Everyone thinks, that I've spoken to anyway, everyone thinks that this government is not moving in good faith. Some actually think HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy believes what he says, and they think that he does really think that he's trying to make America healthy again, but he's getting the wrong sources and he has the wrong people in his ear. One of those insiders I spoke to said that they made HR work throughout the weekend and that it's just really a tumultuous working environment. We've talked to scientists there. One of them I had breakfast with yesterday who told me that he still thinks that he had a job. He hadn't opened up his laptop. But, as I mentioned, just when they think things can't get any worse, there's this about face, and there's just feel like they're just sort of getting toyed with and messed with. So we have that reporting out, a new video that we put out as well with former head of the CDC, part of the adolescent division, as well as some CDC employees, staffers who are part of the group called Fired But Fighting. I believe that's an old moniker, but I think it's like the National Public Health Coalition now as they've changed their name. But it's effectively people inside public health professionals, former CDC employees that really feel as though America is less safe and we're at risk of, a disease, a potential other pandemic outbreak, if you could believe that. That's really scary stuff to think about. We also want to highlight our first op-ed from our executive producer, Eric Sandoval, who wrote that he believes that President Trump's gaffes are not necessarily blunders or goofs, but that they're actually calculated. And it's that this, cruelty is the point in this administration. And when we realize that, and when we recognize that as fact, he argues that incompetence is a weapon that can be used. It's a loyalty test. And at first, it was just a loyalty test for all those Trump employees. And now, Eric Sandoval, our EP, argues that it's a loyalty test for the rest of the country. Really insightful article. We encourage you guys to go check that out. It's on our Substack. And to round out some of the reporting that we are highlighting as well, probably one of the most heart-wrenching interviews that I've ever done. A woman named Yoselina, we're not using her last name to protect her from retribution, not only here in the United States, but potentially if she is deported or her husband is deported back to Nicaragua, where they immigrated from. Her baby was born at 23 weeks. And, I thought mistakenly that a baby couldn't be viable until, 28, 29 weeks. Her baby was born at around 5 months, 680 grams. The baby was so tiny that it could fit in the palm of her hand. And she said it was so red and translucent. The organs were half developed. I mean, this she is blaming on the stress of her husband being taken into custody by ICE. And it was recently that her husband was pulled over during a traffic stop. They were driving in a car where the registration, they bought it from a private seller. They hadn't transferred over the registration. He was driving without a driver's license. All of that was enough to get him taken into custody and find him in immigration custody. He still has not met his child. He's not even seen a picture of his child. That reporting is up. We posted that a little while ago, earlier today, on our social media. Just part of the litany of stories that we've been covering here at Nick Valencia News. So a lot to get into, a lot to focus on, a lot of reporting that we put out there. And, that brings us to our next guest, and I want to, before I close the loop on the last story, Yoselina and her husband, they fled Nicaragua during pro-democracy protests. Her husband was taken into custody by the local police. They say he was tortured. He had his fingernails ripped out. There is a bubbling pro-democracy movement there, a very thriving one, I should say, in Nicaragua, pushing back against corruption in the government. And that's something that we are becoming familiar with here. we're seeing a lot of these cities across the United States, specifically the Democratic ones, which have been the focus of the ire, it seems, by the president here. Cities like Los Angeles, cities like Chicago, and cities like Portland. And that brings us to our next guest. He is a familiar face on this show, and I want to invite here and bring into the room Jerrod Zisser, independent journalist and host of The Take. Jerrod is recently back from a trip to Portland. Hey, Jerrod, what's up, man? How are you?
What's going on, Nick? I'm doing great. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you loud and clear, man. Thank you so much for joining the show again. How you been, man?
I've been great, man. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet, you bet. So we wanted to highlight some of your reporting. We know you've been traveling around a lot. Since the last time you were with us, you actually had been to London, you've been to Washington, D.C., and you've been to Portland. And so we want to first start with Portland because that seems to be, a site of a lot of activity and standing up to immigration agents, some of these law enforcement officers that are working in cahoots with immigration agents. Tell us what you saw in the days that you were there.
Okay, great. Yeah, what I'm going to talk about is exactly what I saw and what my camera saw probably 350 times. That's how many videos I have from that 4-day trip. But basically, I went there with the goal to embed with the around-the-clock Occupy protesters that have been there for 120 plus days. And God, these people were incredible. Very sweet, very, they cared about the country. They cared about just people in general, and they did not like seeing their neighbors being kidnapped by ICE agents. And obviously, the ongoing switch we're having as a government right now, whether you believe it or not, to, a fascist state. But anyway, so these people were making sure that ICE knew they were there 24/7. And they did it very peacefully. These are the type of people, and it drove me crazy as a Marine that served time in combat. It drove me crazy that these are the type of people that would get hit, turn the cheek, get hit again, and then offer the individual a bottle of water and food. And I asked one of the ladies that was there for the longest time, like, what are you doing? Like, they're actively here trying to, and this wasn't ICE, by the way. This was, agitators from the far right that decided to show up and try and incite riots for 2-3 days while I was there. And I could not believe my eyes. These people were being literally attacked, and I mean literally Molotov cocktails one night, attacked by, we don't know who that was. A protester that just blew bubbles into the sky. That was his protest. He would walk up and down the street and blow bubbles when ICE came out. He's on his 4th surgery right now because he had his leg shattered by an agitator. I saw a woman be assaulted with a flagpole and people getting hit in the back of the heads. These agitators were literally showing up to try and incite a fight and riot and, help Trump basically call in National Guard. And I know that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but those same individuals that I have on camera were literally in the White House the next day talking to Trump and on national television about how dangerous these protesters were.
Wait a minute. Now, so the real narrative here then is you see the peaceful demonstrators that were being met with a heavy hand by law enforcement. And then from what you saw, your survey of one, from your perspective, you saw members of the far right, MAGA influencers agitate the crowd, and then they were in the White House?
Next day they were in the White House. I haven't contacted these individuals yet to actually have to let them know that I'm going to be doing a story on this. So I'm not going to say their names, but I've been having a really hard time since I've been back. DC was one thing. The federalization was kind of mind-blowing. It really showed me that our democracy actually is quite fragile, and civil rights can be stripped away so easy considering how hard they are to come by.
This is really scary to think about the lessons that we could learn from this and sort of the game plan from we don't know who these agitators are, if they're on their own or if they're part of some broader conspiracy to get in there, like you said, to potentially stir up trouble and get the National Guard troops, on the ground. We saw a federal judge push back against an order to send the National Guard troops into Portland. We saw them eventually arrive in Chicago. Talk about, some of these demonstrators, they're like in these dinosaur costumes that my kids wear for Halloween. They're in these talk about that. What's that all about?
So that's interesting. There were a couple when I was there, actually. Well, I mean, the chicken person, the chicken costume was definitely there when I was there, which was what you see when you watch Kristi Noem's, live take when she was on top of the ice building. Like that was they just, for some reason that camera went right on that chicken guy. That guy was awesome, by the way. But yeah, no, I mean, look, there were several different organizations and groups that are down there protesting, and each of them do it their own way. But right now there is an inflatable dance party that is basically going on 24/7. And it really goes to show that I'll tell you right now, I mean, the narrative that's coming out of the White House right now is that Portland is a war zone. Okay. And when I was there, except for about a 15-minute period, it was not even subject to an entire block. Okay. And the reason I say that, maybe a block and a quarter, actually, excuse me. The reason I say that is because there was the day that the Texas National Guard was called in and then halted for 2 weeks by the judge. 2 hours after that, we saw 2 drones come over the wall of the DHS building, the ICE building. And 2 DHS officers, ICE officers with gimbals and nice cameras coming out, and about 75 to 80 officers fully geared up and basically launching a complete assault on everybody there. This video is on it's pinned on my Instagram, by the way. It's a much longer video, obviously, that I have not put on, YouTube yet, but it was probably the closest I've been to Iraq since I've been out. I mean, we're talking 400, maybe 500 rounds of pepper balls. And
Jerrod, rather than, we want you to, we know we're talking about this, but we have video of this. We have some of your video that you took. We want to show some of this video to our audience.
Oh, go for it. All right, so they came out, I forget why actually now, but basically felt, I guess, threatened by the peaceful protesters, and let off so many pepper rounds, I feel like I'm gonna throw up. Even with my gas mask on, it didn't do much. But I want you to see this footage. Tell me how this is justified.
That's not even your fucking property! Shut the fuck up! I'm a little sick. You're such a big boy. Great job, hombre. You can't shoot or shit, by the way. You can't shoot or shit.
Wow. Jerrod, can you just take us through what we saw there? That was intense correspondent work.
Yeah, and honestly, that wasn't even the worst one. The one that's pinned on my Instagram is the war zone one, which was insane. But basically, look, these ICE agents are feeling challenged. I mean, they are surrounded by peaceful protesters, but still a lot of people. And I can tell that they're kind of losing control a little bit, and that wasn't a good example, actually. I mean, those pepper rounds, by the way, my God, they're such a fine powder. So as soon as that wind picks up, and I mean, for 3 days, I felt like I was basically going to be vomiting probably at least 2 times an hour. And
it gets into your throat, into your eyes, it's all into your clothes.
Oh, it's so bad. I mean, they even shot an 80-year-old woman when I was there in the head with one of those. And I mean, she was covered in blood and everything. It's a terrible thing.
We have the warfare clip if you want to show that and talk to us.
I think that personally really kind of shows how aggressive, because even the people on the ground for 120 days were saying, well, things are picking up.
Wow. Well,
ICE attempted to push the protesters back. There were probably several hundred different rounds that were fired at the protesters. I got them back about a block. But the protesters pushed them back.
quota on how much gas.
Jerrod, you hear someone in the video there ask, "What is this all for?" And as a veteran, as a Marine, what do you make of the heavy-handed response? You know, those people that we saw in that video, most of them had phones in their hands.
Yeah, no, it was intense. It literally came out of nowhere. Nothing happened before that. They like I was saying earlier, I mean, the National Guard troops were the Texas National Guard troops were denied for 2 weeks. That happened about 2.5, 3 hours later. And it came completely unprovoked. They came out, they just started pushing and assaulting and shooting. I was lucky enough to stay in that spot. So that day, I wasn't shot that day, which was nice. I was shot twice while I was there. Once in the helmet, thank God I was wearing a helmet, and then once actually in the leg, but mostly my pants. And you know, it was quite an escalate. It was quite an escalation, and the protesters even collected all the gas and smoke, the smoke bombs and everything. And it was this massive pile, bucket full of them. It's an intimidation tactic for one. It's a show of force for two. And I thought it was weird that it happened after the National Guard got told they can't come in, because then 2 hours after that, we got notice that Trump. It was posted on DHS or ICE's Twitter page showing a war zone. California National Guard was flying in right after that, and then they got stopped. So I don't know. I mean, it could be a lot of things, but one thing for sure is that it was a pretty intense 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is that you're seeing this, and that's the job of a reporter, is to go there and see, you know, say what you see. And that's probably why you're doing this, and why you're putting your life in the line, and why you're putting your life in jeopardy here. Why are you doing this? What makes you go out there as an independent? I mean, you were in real estate before this. You made a shift about 5 months ago, and you've been very successful as an independent journalist, delivering news to people that don't watch the TV. They're not watching, you know, news like they used to. They're coming to people like you. You're quickly becoming one of the nation's most trusted news content creators.
Oh my God, that's way too kind of you. Thank you so much. I mean, no, look, I'll say the same thing I say every time, and it's two things. One, I took an oath when I joined the Marine Corps, and I think that oath is becoming more important right now than it ever was before, and I have to honor that, and I'm proud to honor that. And then two, I don't want to be one of the individuals that was asked, like after the Holocaust, when the Jews were being rounded up and shipped out, did you do anything to help them? I mean, 90% of people said no. I don't want to be asked that question. And if I am asked that question, I want to say I stood up and I tried to do something. And that is this. And going to those places and showing the perspectives, my followers sent me there. They paid for me to go and do that because, I mean, look, we don't know what's actually going on, really. I mean, mainstream media, the only people I saw there were Fox, except for the day I left, CNN decided to show up for a morning interview with the protesters. But we're not really getting shown exactly what's going on. And my followers really wanted to know. I mean, God, I came back and I had like almost $2,000 in donations to go to Chicago next. And I have to stay home. I mean, I got 2 birthdays in my family this month and things going on. So I can't really go to Chicago right now, but I'm just trying to bring truth to light. That's all I'm trying to do.
Is there something that really stands out to you coming from, I mean, as journalists, 22-year journalists, you know, we used to call people like you civilians. You're not a civil. I mean, I guess I can't even use that phrase with you because you're a Marine. But, you know, point taken, right? We call people that aren't typically journalists or independents like civilians. Coming from the civilian background, you know, what do you really notice a lot? I mean, is there anything that really stands out to you about this country that you didn't think was true before and that you do now? Or, you know, just speak on that part.
You know, I was thinking to myself the other day, before I started looking into this and basically making the news and politics my entire identity, I was ignorant to basically everything that had to do with politics in our government. And, you know, part of me thinks that was, you know, ignorance is bliss. You know, that's like kind of a thing that you miss. But at the same, because when you get into this world and all I focus on is what's going on in politics, basically. Yeah. And, you know, you realize that, first of all, this country's pretty fragile. And it doesn't take much to influence people to do bad things. and we need more truth tellers out there to basically bring it back in. It's scary, man. I mean, I guess the biggest thing I've learned is how easily this experiment that we're conducting in the United States can be over. And as soon as probably 2026, I don't know. We'll see.
You know, that to me really stood out. I used to think, God, you know, this is a democracy, but the levers were always there to be pulled for what we're seeing now. And I think the president did for his followers, his supporters, which is why they love him so much. You know, he has been, in their eyes, very successful at deregulation, very successful at being aggressive towards, you know, illegal immigration, very successful at sort of just, I don't know, for the alphas or people that think they're alphas or want to be alphas, that's what the life is out there. That's what society is out there. Others, people who are considered weak, people who are considered weird, you know, we're told not to even look their way, that they don't even exist. And so for what you're saying, Jerrod, about truth seekers, truth is rebellious right now.
It is. No, absolutely.
Truth is rebellious right now.
Yep, it is. It is. I mean, it's really interesting. You know, I had this really big issue when I was there. You know, I myself kind of in this middle where I can teeter-totter. And this is just my opinion and the opinion of a professor that I spoke with who was actually fired for teaching an anti-fascism class. I'm sorry, an anti-fascism class. And he said, look, there's really not a middle at the moment. So if you're telling the truth, you're left. It's really hard. The thing is, I've realized I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible with everything I'm doing.
I know.
And I'm finding it so hard to do that.
Well, let me tell you,
because then I have to agree with at some point.
Being a journalist for so long, man, I have landed that there's no such thing as objectivity. I tried so hard. I went to journalism school. They taught us all about being objective and this idea that, you know, you got to give equal time to every. My metric is fairness. And I think that is totally different from what objectivity is. And I remember being in college during what I guess is technically the third Gulf War, 2003, the shock and awe invasion. And I remember seeing this documentary called Control Room, and it was on Al Jazeera. They were thought to be the propaganda arm of Al Qaeda. And the producer there said, there's no, you know, in response to the criticism, she said, there's no such thing as objectivity. Objectivity is a farce. And you can be fair. And that's why people will come to you. That's why you could talk to anybody. And that's why we have you on the show. We think that you're very fair and you have a phenomenal and very deep, interesting background, which brings a lot of context. But you can't bend and squeeze yourself to try to, you know, win favor with our dear leader. You know, that's what he wants. This is just all a loyalty test. You know, what is next for you? What's next for Jerrod Zisser and The Take?
Well, you know, I'm going to keep reporting. I'm going to keep doing my stuff. I have some big things happening, but they're not officially signed. I'm waiting for that to happen this week. And when that does happen, it's probably going to be, it's a massive major deal. And I'm super excited about it, actually. I wish I could say it right now, but I have to wait. But I am building a massive, this whole room is my new office. I have like lighting systems on the wall, cameras mounted. I mean, I have the entire background being built. It's gonna be big. I'm really excited. So I'll tell you about that next time.
Yeah, we don't want to break the news here just yet. We don't want to ruin any NDAs or anything's in motion, but we're picking up what you're laying down, looking at that studio behind you. It's so cool to see your growth, Jerrod. For those of us that have been following you and just seeing like the development and just seeing how much you've thrown yourself into this, it's really, really cool. You're going to be at No Kings in LA, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to be on the, I'm definitely going to be there 100% covering the whole thing. The downtown, No Kings. There's quite a few in LA, but I will definitely be there.
Well,
LA is a crazy place for protests.
Say again?
LA is a crazy place when there's protests.
Man, it is. That's kind of where we launched our independent career here in the streets of LA. And it was a week after I got back from that first round that I realized like I got shot out on live. And like I remember going home and telling my mom, and she's like, yeah, of course, Nikki, like we all saw you get shot at on live. You didn't see it because you're in the middle of like the adrenaline and all the rush, you know, but it is an absolutely crazy place.
You're going to be there, right?
You're going to be in No Kings next. I mean, what else? You got this potential deal in the works. What else do you see out there? You know, we'd love to follow you. How can we follow up with what you're doing, with what you're reporting on? Tell us all about that.
Yeah, no. First of all, thank you for the kind words. I mean, I'm so glad that you're there and available to pick up a phone when I have questions and to help me in this, journalism journey, which is extremely thankful that you're, helping me with
God
that.
bless you, brother.
As far as following me, I mean, it's Jerrod Zisser at Jerrod Zisser. I mean, I'm everywhere. My YouTube channel is, I'm getting back on my YouTube channel, which is gonna be great. And I mean, look, I got called yesterday by somebody who wants me to investigate a situation that happened to them with I guess I can't really talk about that too much right now. Anyway,
Yeah,
I'm
don't.
thinking about investigative journalism a little bit because I have so many people coming at me and like saying I have to learn how to do that properly too. So I'll talk to you about that as well. But yeah, I don't know. I honestly, it's every day. I'm just taking it day by day.
My phone line is always open, man. And one of the things that, before I let you go, I want to ask you, because we're seeing a lot of stuff. This is a
Yeah.
conversation I had last night with my executive producer. He's on the phone every single morning. He wakes up, rolls over, and he's looking at the latest ICE raids. He's looking at the worst of humanity, right? And years ago, I was in Webster Parish, Louisiana. Still, my favorite interview I've ever done was with a guy named Greg Lee, just an average, ordinary American, right? He told me something that always stuck with me. He says when it applies to his kids, if they're going through something, he always asks them, "What are you watching? What are you reading? And what are you listening to?" Because all of that affects you, right? So what we are doing right now, what we're watching, what we're reading, what we're listening to, is constant tragedy and trauma and the worst of the world. You just came back from a really ugly situation, thankfully in one piece. What do you do to protect your mental health, and how do you take care of yourself so that we can continue to see your reporting in the days, weeks, and years ahead?
Yeah, no, I'm not ashamed to say it. I mean, I go to therapy every week. I was doing that even before this. It's just something I do to really just kind of wash and kind of like rinse so I can repeat basically.
Yeah.
But when I came back from Portland, I'll be honest with you, I was if you look at my page, you'll notice I didn't really post for 2.5, 3 days. I mean, I didn't. I tried so hard, but I was going through such a mental crisis when I got back after seeing what people one are capable of doing to other people that are not in uniform or trying to guard a block or neighborhood, but you know seeing how fragile everything was and seeing people being brutally just beat, and hearing stories from women and just I definitely so I do the therapy once a week,
Yeah.
and I think that's really I have my wife and my kids. My wife is my light. I mean, like crazy. My kids are amazing. And I just started doing my cold plunge again because that
There we
always kept
go.
me in a really, really good mood when I used to do that. So I got back into the cold plunge game. I don't know. I'm doing what I can because I've noticed that the longer I'm in this, because I'm not looking at anything good, it is becoming taxing. But we're taking preemptive strikes to make sure that it doesn't take me out of the game or affect my health as at least as best as we can.
Yeah, we're in it for the long haul. That's what we say here at Nick
Yep.
Valencia News. And we want you to be in it for the long haul too, man. You got to continue to take care of yourself. I'm here for you, man. Anytime you want to pick up the phone and give me a call, hopefully I'll see you in LA. I think I will, brother. I think
Oh
I'll
no,
see you
you're
in
gonna see me in
LA.
LA. You'll see me in LA.
All
I
my love,
appreciate you,
Jerrod.
Nick.
Hey, all my
Bye.
love, man. Thank you. That was Jerrod Zisser, independent journalist and host of The Take. He's been doing some phenomenal work, guys. I really encourage you guys to go watch him. And I was giving him his flowers. He gives me mine all the time, man. It was so cool. He teaches me stuff about this new space. There's some things that I learned that I brought in from CNN. A lot of the fundamentals I learned. Not everything is bad from the mainstream. There's a lot of great stuff. It led to my foundation of who I am here. But there's a lot of things as an independent journalist that he's doing naturally. And I see him, and I learned a thing or two from Jerrod Zisser as well. So we have another independent journalist here on the show that we want to introduce you to. We are going to pivot from Portland and bring you to Chicago, which is another city that's been the site of a lot of demonstrations against immigration agents in this country and Trump 2.0's immigration policy. We've seen the activity there. We've seen everyday citizens standing up to immigration agents outside of the Broadview detention facility. And we want to bring someone in here who has a lot of experience reporting outside Broadview detention facility, Mike Kelly. He is a Chicago-based photographer, independent journalist. Thanks for being on the show, Mike. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
How are you, man? What is going on? What's the latest? When was the last time you were out there?
So I've been out there almost daily.
Yeah.
I live nearby, which is how I got started in this. It's 15 minutes from my front door. It's right
Wow.
here local. And yeah, it's escalated quite a bit over the last few weeks. I started covering it, I think, about 5 weeks ago now. And the aggression kind of shown towards the protesters there has been surprising, to say the least.
Prior to this, what were you reporting on? I mean, you're sort of meeting the moment, which is what why we have you on the show. There was a moment to meet, you met the moment. What were you doing before this?
Yeah, so this is actually sort of a pivot from my usual work. I do a lot of like wildlife and extreme weather photography. So this was a kind of a pivot, similar, I guess you could say, kind of tense environment. That's not too unfamiliar for me, but the kind of focus on something so in the spotlight at the moment politically is a new area for me. And yeah, covering this for the past few weeks has been kind of eye-opening. I have not seen this sort of mass movement of people and the aggression you've seen from both now police and ICE has been a little overwhelming at times.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Jerrod Zisser. He was just on the show a short time ago showing us what looked like warfare on the streets of America in Portland, and the heavy-handed approach from law enforcement to demonstrators that had a phone in their hand, that were wearing blow-up dinosaur costumes. We have some photos of yours from Chicago that we want to show our viewers. Tell us about what we're seeing here. You actually got photos as well of the priest, the Presbyterian priest. Was it Father Clark that was shot in the head with pepper balls as well?
Yes, yeah, that is correct. So that was a Friday evening, and that was, of all the days I've been there, that was probably one that escalated really out of nothing. Sometimes you get tensions that slowly build throughout the day, but that
And there's
evening,
the priest right there. There's the
yes,
father who was shot in the head. I mean, you
multiple
say that
times,
day
yeah.
was especially tense. Take us through that moment. Take us through that day.
So yeah, that evening, this is prior to, they've erected a fence now that blocks protesters from getting this close to the facility. But at this point in time, you were able to kind of go right up to the facility, and you had maybe 20, 30 protesters across the street, a handful of press, and again, this was across the street. There was room. This is probably the most passive I'd seen the protest that weekend, and I don't know what the cause was, but a woman in a wheelchair actually kind of wheeled herself into the street, and she had a sign and she was chanting, and for whatever reason, a single ICE officer opened fire on her. It was a barrage of pepper bombs, or
Did
pepper
he
balls.
give her a warning from what you saw? Was there any indication that
There was no warning, and it almost looked like the other ICE officers were caught off guard. I don't think this was. I think this was someone stepping past the line, and as soon as that happened, a group ran to her. They grabbed her, they brought her back, and tensions immediately escalated. Chants got louder, kind of people moved into the street a little bit, and then at that point, they just started open firing, and that's when you saw the priest there. He got shot multiple times in the head, and then shortly after, he was maced, which is that shot you see of the water kind of dripping down was kind of medics on site helping him.
That video, I reposted, so many others reposted. You were there that moment. Just to see the optics of a man in the cloth be met this way, in this fashion, by ICE agents.
Mm-hmm.
What does that say about where we're at in America, and what was going through your head when you were witnessing in real time?
I mean, I think it was sort of at that point I realized that this wasn't so much of it wasn't them trying to control the crowd. It was them trying to incite it. Is really what I've seen the past few days. It seems like there was almost a coordinated effort at times to amplify tensions. He was going up there clearly, unarmed, clearly not aggressive. They're on a roof. He's on the ground. I mean, just to give people an idea of the distance, right? It's not like he could have in any way attacked them. And they blatantly opened fire on him, and he's one of many that this has happened to. This isn't a sole story. This has unfortunately become the norm through a lot of these protests in Chicago. The use of chemical agents or other non-lethals is not a not something they hold back from using. It's like their go-to. It's the first thing they use when they can.
And we call them they say non-lethals. They're really less lethals. You take one of those things in the wrong side of the temple,
Absolutely.
it'll take out an eye. We were shot at, myself and my photographer were shot at in the streets of Los Angeles by the LAPD
Yeah.
earlier this summer. I mean, it's scary out there to be there and to go make that pivot from extreme weather and wildlife, and then all of a sudden you're seeing the wild scenes on the
Yeah.
streets of America. I mean, how are you internalizing that, Mike? How are you absorbing that? Because this is really a really ugly epic of the United States.
It absolutely is. And I think the way I sort of internalize it when I'm out there is really trying to focus on telling the individual stories when you can. There's so much chaos, especially in some of the videos I've posted. There's people running and screaming, and it can be overwhelming at times. And I found, at least maybe it's just the photographer in me, but trying to focus on someone like, the Reverend there and those individuals that are kind of taking a stance. There's the beauty in the chaos, right? And it's those individuals that take that moment to kind of that defiant stance. And even though they're being shot at and they're being frankly assaulted, right, by federal officers, focusing on those individuals has kind of helped me, I guess, do the best work I can in those chaotic environments.
I think of this J. Cole line, there's beauty in the struggle, ugliness in the
They can-
success. I also think about what you're doing to document this in case one day these agents go in before a court of law. There's an opportunity for that. And that's something that I started thinking about this week, is that power is going to change, God willing, one day in this country. And that
Yeah.
these agents and these federal officers who are raining terror on the streets against everyday Americans, detaining them, even though we're American citizens, showing up at apartment complexes where there's people of color, cuffing toddlers reportedly.
Mhm.
I mean, they're going to have to answer for this. Todo se paga
Absolutely
en este
correct.
mundo. Everything comes back around. Do you think that you are documenting for history's sake? Is that part of what you're doing? I mean, I think I'm asking a projecting question here, because I feel like that's kind of what we're doing here, is sort of putting an eye on things so that one day when there is consequences and accountability, we have evidence of it.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think that's part of it. And I think in another sense, it's, this can really help people in the immediate future too. I actually had a family
Mm.
member reach out from one of the first videos I had that kind of went a little viral, I guess you could say. And
Well, you're
they're
going
already
viral,
using
Mike. That's why you're here, man.
they're already using that in defense of a lawsuit because ICE tried charging him with assault. And you can see in the video a clear over aggression to be nice, right, towards this individual. And I'm glad that my video can hopefully help him not only avoid those charges, but also maybe press charges against them in the future. And this is just one of dozens of occurrences that's happening now on a daily basis. I just got an alert not even an hour ago, a couple hours ago, it looks like. They deployed tear gas in a suburb of Chicago. This is just, it's becoming routine. So documenting this for me is, like you said, for a historical purpose, of course, but also to help all these individuals in the moment has been a big part of it.
I mean, we've seen tear gas in residential neighborhoods because ICE wanted to get out of the way. We've seen in Chicago, ICE agents, suspected federal agents with a Mexican flag on their hood, getting in and out of that car. It seems to entrap people. And on your story, I think about being in the streets of, being in the boroughs of New York during the Eric Gardner protests, and there was a lead protester named Poppy Zen there in New York, and they were trying to overcharge him, the local police, and they asked for video from me because I was following him around. So it was that very early on. I think that was about, God, that must have been 2014 or 2015, 10 years ago. It was an emphasis, and it was a learning moment for a young cub reporter that what we do matters, that what we do
Yeah.
can be impactful in the immediate. And one of the things that I'm picking up from what your photos are showing is that there's been an escalation and sort of a shift. We're seeing now Illinois state troopers among the crowd. Can you explain what's going on?
Yeah, and it's been a full shift actually. The last couple kind of, I guess you could call them clashes, right? There's been no ICE officers. It's entirely state police now, protecting the facility and doing the arresting of protesters. So this has been sort of a change from when I first started, right? It was entirely ICE agents, and now state police they're not even working just in conjunction with, they're completely acting as ICE agents, you could say, when on the premise of this Broadview detention center. And the last couple, protests, you will have 100+ state police lined with wooden batons. And it takes very little for them to start using those. And just Saturday night, we had 15 people get arrested.
God, Mike, it's got to be something so different to see it happen to your home. I know how
Yeah.
I felt. That was part of the reason why I stepped up into this role to see what was going on the streets of LA. I was sitting here in Atlanta in my home, and I saw local journalist with LA Public Press, Ryan Mena, being shot in the head by police. And I said, what the fuck? This
Yeah.
is not okay. And I had a job that put me out in the streets at the exact same time this social movement was taken off. And on my off time, I stepped into the streets. So this question for
That's
you,
brilliant.
what is it like to see this as a native of Chicago, as somebody who calls Chicago home,
Mhm.
and who is seeing what's happening on your streets and in and around the city, in Broadview, in Chicago, and other places?
Yeah. You know what? I think one of the things being a local resident to it that's kind of almost been the most concerning is how quickly it's become normal.
Yeah.
If it's been going on now for we'll be going on 2 months now. And it's feeling tear gas, right? Sort of that burning you get with pepper bombs. It's kind of gotten normal around the Broadview area and even in other parts of the city, especially parts with higher Hispanic populations. And that's the most concerning part, is that how quickly that kicks in. And I think the thing that's kind of inspired me to keep going, though, is seeing how resilient the people have been. The bigger show of force that ICE or state police puts out, the bigger the crowd gets, the more they stand up to it. So I think that's maybe the one part they underestimated with those big shows of force, is that it's just united the communities. And unfortunately, I think tensions are continuing to escalate, but at the same time, people are coming together. And I think that's one of the beautiful components of this sort of sad time right now.
Well, it's one thing we never do here is never underestimate Chicago, man. I've been there. I think it's the
Yeah.
most gorgeous city in the country. I love the architecture. I hate seeing what's happening right now on the streets. I hate seeing what's happening
Mhm.
to your hometown, Mike. Keep going, man. We really are
Will be.
inspired by what you're doing. I mean, no BS, man. My producer, my wife, the team here, we love what you're doing. We're so
I
excited that you
appreciate
joined the
that.
show. Really cool stuff, man.
Yep, I'll be here.
All right. That's Mike Kelly. Thank you so much, man. Chicago-based photographer, and a lot of lessons, a lot of information there from Mike and his perspective and what he's seen and how things have de-escalated, or how things have escalated and deteriorated there in Chicago. We want to pivot now here and bring you a series that we're really proud to focus on, because we do really think something is happening in the Trump administration that hasn't been announced, even though it's a matter of policy. We believe this from our research, from our investigations, from the stories and conversations that we have told here in the last 3 months. And we have labeled it here at Nick Valencia News Family Separation 2.0, where it seems as though the Trump administration is going after men or heads of the household and separating families that way, deteriorating the family from the inside out by removing the main breadwinner, putting them into custody, and leaving the family left to pick up the pieces. We brought to you several stories over the course of the last couple of weeks, and we're joined now by another spouse of a man who was recently detained. Adelina Morello here. She is a resident of Atlanta, and she joins Nick Valencia News now. How are you, Adelina? Thank you so much for being on the show.
Hi, Nick. It's been an okay day. How are you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you got to take it a day at a time right now. I mean, every day. I'm okay. I know that this was I know that this is a heavy thing that you're going through right now. And I know that this was, you were 50-50 about whether or not you wanted to be out there, because there's some concerns, and concerns that have merit here, because Trump, you can't put anything past this administration. While we have you, though, I want to emphasize your husband had a legal work permit and was pulled over in a traffic stop, and he's been in ICE custody ever since. Can you tell us the details about what happened, please?
Yeah, he was pulled over for speeding. He had some marijuana on him, so they arrested him for that. And then there's an ICE hold goes into effect, and he was put into ICE custody about 6 days after getting arrested. And now he's been in ICE custody The whole ordeal's been a little shy of a month.
And you're an American citizen, you're a Peruvian American, you fell in love with a man from Peru, connected you to your culture and made you really feel connected to that culture. I hate that we're learning about your husband in custody, which is why I want you to tell our viewers, who's the man that you fell in love with? Who is the person that the government has in custody right now?
Yeah, I mean, Jorge's pretty easygoing. I think I've told you this before, but I'll say it again. He loves working out, working on cars, and being with our dog and being with friends. He keeps in touch with his family in Peru and his sister in Canada a lot, so that's a big part of his life as well. He loves his job. He loves cooking. He loves being a chef. They're still holding his job for him. He's a respected person in his craft and in his field. So work takes up a big portion of his life. But like I said, when he's not working, he's working on our cars, working around the house, and spending time with who he calls his son, our dog.
Yeah, we love the photos that we shared during that report that we put out recently about your situation. You know, I'm sure you guys thought that this could be a possibility in this administration, in this climate that we're in this time. Did you guys talk about any of this leading up to his incident? What were those conversations like?
Excuse me. Yeah, it was talked about. It was talked about.
Your
Sorry.
dog's upset, doesn't like that daddy's not home.
This is Angel, as you've
Hey,
seen.
Angel. It's okay, Angel.
I mentioned my concerns to my husband a couple times. We didn't have a contingency plan, and we got really lucky. The arresting officer let my husband call me. So had he not, like many people these days, we don't have each other's phone numbers memorized. So had the arresting officer not let Jorge call me, I wouldn't have known where he was. And
It's
he was
sad that
on
that's considered luck that he was allowed to
Yes.
call you. That's sad.
Absolutely. But I mean, I'll take the wins where I can.
So take me through the details of what happened. He was speeding. Was he coming home from work? Was he going somewhere? What happened?
He was going to Alabama with a friend in the middle of the night for I forget why, but he was going there, and he was speeding. It was on the 20 leaving Atlanta. It was in Douglas County, and he got pulled over for speeding, but it was 3 a.m. So I had heard him leave the house around 2 a.m. when he left the house. You know, he bid me goodbye. He said, "I love you." A pretty normal goodbye for any time we leave each other. You know, sorry. In hindsight, it was, the last time I'd seen him in our house for a while. And he said goodbye. And then about 45 minutes later, I noticed my phone was buzzing, and I was asleep, but I figured it was important because I figured it was my husband. I didn't really figure it was him, but I saw it was him, and he called and he said, "You need to take a taxi." It's funny, it's 2025 and he still says taxi instead of Uber. But he said, "You need to take a taxi down here." And I didn't really understand what he was talking about. And then the arresting police officer got on the phone and said, "Yeah, your husband was speeding and I found some marijuana, so I have to take him in."
At that point, did they know his documented status? Did that play into it at all, or was it was later that?
I wasn't there, but I'm pretty sure it was never asked.
And then after he was taken into custody, they figure out So explain this to me. He's on a legal work permit, but no green card, married to an American. I mean, there's people that I understand. I understand the complexities of this system. There's people that think that you marry an American and automatically, hey, you're good, but that's not the case.
No, I mean, it's a legal process that costs money, and we don't. We're we make a living, but we don't have disposable income like that. So we hadn't filed our paperwork because we didn't have the money for it.
Roughly how much is it?
It's like the way you
more
just
or less.
described it. It's funny because of, I don't know. I don't even know. I think it's like maybe $5,000.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's funny you brought it up the way you did because about 6 months ago I was out with a friend, and I mentioned Jorge's status just out of a conversation we were having, and she's like, "But he's married to you." And I was like, "Yeah, but you don't just get handed a green card at the marriage ceremony. Like that's just not the way it works."
Yeah, it's not the way it works. Marrying an American doesn't guarantee you citizenship. There's a whole process you have to go through. And how long has he been in custody now? And what does he tell you about the conditions? How often are you able to talk to him? Do you have hope that you're going to see him again?
I know I'll see him again, no matter what happens. If he goes back to Peru, I'm Peruvian. I have family there, and I have my husband there. So I can just go down to Peru. I could technically move there if I wanted to, I believe. But we keep up. He's able to message and call. He calls me 2 to 5 times a day. Only recently has he kind of focused on the negative of Stuart. That's where he's been for, I want to say 10 days now, maybe longer. He keeps telling me he's being treated well. Except for the first weekend he got transferred on a Friday night, and you can't do anything with the legal process on a Friday night through Saturday, Sunday. So it happened both times they transferred him, or all 3 times, whatever. It was on a Friday. And he was arrested on a Friday. So all of these situations have been pretty frustrating. He slept on the floor under a staircase with a pillow the first 2 nights he was at Stewart. The reason why he didn't go Stewart right away is because it was overcrowded. But just recently, he's been pretty frustrated. Like today, he was telling me it's cold in there and the food sucks. And he's a chef, so he knows good food. And it's not like, but he hadn't been complaining about those things until recently.
And on that, one of the things that caught our attention about your story is that he said in Stewart detention, he's around a lot of other people that had legal work permits and that were in the process of getting their asylum claims.
I mentioned to you, I heard that on the radio in the morning, and that's what inspired me to write my post on Facebook. And then Jorge's mentioned it to me that the people at Stewart are on work visas or work permits and waiting for asylum, just like you said, and married to Americans.
Yeah, it's just mind-boggling to us. Legal work permit, going through the asylum claim.
He's also keeps reminding me that he's fortunate. I'm sorry, what? It got choppy.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, it's just what you're emphasizing and highlighting. It's just people are going through this process, and it's still not enough. Any wrong move, any red light that you run, you going 5 miles, 10 miles over the speed limit. It's like you have to be so exceptional of a citizen and a person. Nothing can be done wrong, and we just know that that's not how humans work. That's these. Jorge was somebody who was a head chef at one of the best Peruvian restaurants in the city. Somebody who added value to those around him, added value to the stream of life. It's so difficult to know that this is happening to good people. And that's why we wanted to have you on, Adelina. And we're really grateful for you taking the time and your strength and just your courage to come out and show your face. We know that you're going to see him again. Is there anything that we haven't asked you that you think is important to know, or anything that you'd like to say? Now's your chance.
As much as this is predominantly affecting Latinos, I want to focus on that. Jorge keeps reminding me that he's surrounded by people from all over the world. This is it's hurting a lot of families. And I just don't understand the sentiment that immigrants are a threat to anyone.
I don't think any of us do. We make no illusions about where we stand here, where we stand at Nick Valencia News, supporting the undocumented, those that add value to this country. Thank you so much, Adelina, for taking the time with us. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon, okay? God bless you. That was Adelina
Thanks, Mac.
Morello. Thank you. And that's our show, guys. It is so difficult to hear those stories, but so important to listen to them and to really know what's going on here in this country. And this is a message not for the Trump voter, but for those that are politically disillusioned, that your voice matters, your vote matters. Sitting the last election out, this is the result of what we've been left with. And there's so many registered voters who did not vote because they felt like their vote doesn't matter. I hear it all the time, After this, I'm on my way to go mentor and teach a class to inner city kids. There's a lot of message from the inner city that I get that voting doesn't matter. And the message that I push back is there wouldn't be so many old, rich, white people making sure that it's hard to vote if it didn't matter. If it didn't matter. Voting matters so much. Using your voice matters so much. And this is what we're left with here. We want to pivot here and, announce what we're doing next. We are continuing here and digging in for the long haul. And, we have a big event here coming up. This weekend, October 18th, is the National No Kings Protest 2.0. And we want to say that we're going to be live streaming all day long. I mentioned to Jerrod Zisser, if you were watching from the beginning of this show, we might see him in LA. That was a tease to what we're going to be doing here this weekend. We are definitely going to see Jerrod Zisser in Los Angeles. We are going to be joining the media pool there at the 50501 movement out of Los Angeles and live streaming all day long. Starting at 12 p.m., we'll be broadcasting, here's a map here. Oh, look at that, Eric. He's got it all fancy setting up here. These are events all across the country. I didn't expect to see that. That's pretty cool. Look at all those dots all across the country. Not very many dots in the middle of the country as there are on the coast, but that's how it goes here in the U.S. We'll be at one of those dots in the Los Angeles area. We're starting in Highland Park, Eagle Rock, Northeast LA, my hometown. And we're going to be broadcasting all throughout the day, interviewing people there on the public transportation line as we make our way to Temple Bridge. And then we're going to be broadcasting, coming to you live as well with Jim Acosta. Jim Acosta is going to have us on his show. He's got his own plans and details of what he's got going on No King's Day. But a very big announcement here for Nick Valencia News. We're heading back on the road, and we're going to be broadcasting live October 18th, all day long, live streaming from the No Kings Protest 2.0, starting at 12 p.m. local time in Los Angeles, 3 p.m. Eastern. We're really excited about all of that. Eric Sandoval, my producer, is going to be out there with us, and we're going to be introducing you to some other journalists along the way. I mentioned Ryan Mena. She's going to be making an appearance. Jerrod Zisser will be making an appearance. And hopefully, some of those guys over there from LA Taco, we love their work over there and the phenomenal, fantastic journalism that they do. That's the show, guys. Tuesday, October 14th. What a day, man. What a great show. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for sharing, liking, supporting, and helping us make truth go viral. Have a great day on purpose, everybody.